is good for the economy. Your next reasonable thing is, why are men allowed in women's bathrooms? Mike again? Oh yeah, I didn't see the invite. Why the fuck? This one is glitchy. I'm gonna have to get a new one. God damn it. It's almost like they can't read. Well, any case, Edna, did you vote for Donald Trump?
Hi, I think my connection is bad. Can I reconnect? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I'll drop you down. You can come back up.
Oh no, I think.
Oh, I don't know what you said, but yeah, come back up whenever your connection's good. You had a couple red bars there, so I'm not sure what was going on. Not sure what's going on. Also, I did not realize I was blocking words. I meant to make those smaller. All right. You look like your service is good now.
Yeah, it is. I was trying to explain to one of your mods. I'm a dual citizen, of both the United States and the Caribbean. I wasn't in the country at the time, but I would have voted for Trump had I been here. I didn't know that I could vote internationally. That wasn't something I was aware of. So I don't know if you're still okay with having a conversation with a Trump supporter nonetheless. I'm not sure if you're open to that, because I've been denied debating with quite a few other hosts. They said that if I didn't vote, I can't talk. So it's up to you.
Well, you're a Trump supporter, maybe not a voter.
Yeah, I didn't vote because I wasn't here. I wasn't in the country at the time, because I live in Jamaica, so I wasn't here at the time. I had a family emergency.
What are your thoughts on the topic?
I don't really know what you mean by pronouns over policy, so you would have to elaborate. Could you further elaborate what you mean?
Yes, the Republican Party, more particularly MAGA, are so engulfed in their own phobias that they voted irrationally. They voted against the entire country, including especially the LGBTQ community, for Trump and the mediocrity we've been seeing since he took the Oval Office on January the 20th of this year.
I think Trump is actually more in favor of the LGB than he isn't. I think he's actually protecting the LGB more than he is, and women especially, especially with his executive order that he passed on the 20th of January. I think that he's actually protecting and enforcing and helping the LGBT community.
Can you elaborate on what action he has taken specifically to help the LGBTQ community?
Well, sure. I can go with women and then the LGB, because women are included in the LGB.
Women who are lesbian, bisexual, or trans, sure. This is not about cis women.
Well, I personally don't think trans women are women, so I wouldn't include them there. But if you do, then we could have a conversation about that. But I don't.
Well, they absolutely are.
Well, why do you think that they were?
Why do I think that they are? I don't think that they are. I know.
Why don't you tell me what you think like a woman is, for example?
What do I think a woman is? I think a woman is...
You don't have to say think. Just saying what is a woman?
A woman is someone who identifies as such, because sex and gender would be two different things.
Well, that's circular. You can't say that a woman is a person who identifies as such. It would be circular reasoning. It's like saying a dog is an animal that looks as such.
What was circular about the definition of sex and gender being different?
No, I didn't say that you didn't give a definition of sex and gender. You just defined woman. So I'm not talking about that statement. You said that a woman is a person who identifies as such. That's not telling us anything. You're just going in a circle. It's like the equivalent of saying a dog is an animal that looks as such. That's not telling me what a dog is. You're simply just repeating the concept. You have to elaborate beyond the concept if you intend to describe it. So you don't say things like that. That's like elementary English language. I'm not saying that to be insulting. It's just something that I've learned.
Yeah. Sure.
So you can't say that a woman is a person who identifies as such. You're not telling us what the word is.
Absolutely. Well, socially, we know they are defined as people who can have babies, right? Who can commit birth. They have chromosomes. Well, that would be defined as a woman.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. So giving birth isn't a social process, so that wouldn't be a social definition. And I'm
saying socially, that's how they are perceived. Women who can have birth would be considered. People who can have birth would be considered women. That's why I said socially.
Not necessarily, because there are women who don't give birth. So I don't think that that's the best metric.
That's correct, but then they would still be defined as women based off of being born with a vagina.
Right, but that's not a social thing. That wouldn't be a social definition. Then that would be a biologically related definition.
Sure, but again, the social aspect that I brought up is how socially we define women by those characteristics. I'm aware of that being biological.
Well, every word is defined by society, so if that's what you mean, then sure. But the actual definition is biological, so it wouldn't be a social definition; it would be a biological definition.
Just the definition of women is biological.
That's what you just stipulated. You said it was defined
No,
by a
it's
person
not.
who can give. Well, you said that we define persons as women who can give birth. Is giving birth and gestation not a biological process?
What?
You said that we define women in society by persons who give birth and gestate. I'm asking if gestation
Yes, that is one
giving
of the
birth.
characteristics we
Okay,
use.
are
Yes.
those things biological processes?
What now?
Is gestation a biological process?
Uh-huh.
Right, so then it's biological, not social. I don't know where the disconnect is.
I never denied that. I think you're
You
missing
just
my
did. You just said
entire
it wasn't.
point.
You just said
No,
it.
I said we socially use that to define a woman, despite the fact that trans women are also women and they cannot have babies,
Okay, well,
or at
then
least
they're
not
not
through the
included.
biological process that
Well,
you're
they're not
referencing.
Whether they're not included in that definition. If it's a person who can give birth and gestate, then trans women aren't included. So you're not arguing how trans women are women. That definition actively excludes them. So it contradicts what you're trying to advocate for.
I know that you guys really love to like fill bro trans people's identities, but can you tell me, is there a difference between neurological sex and your chromosomal sex, or your
Neurological.
words are escaping me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, neurological sex is not a thing. There's a difference between
It
sexual.
is, because we can see the difference in
can I just
people's
finish?
brains. Wait, no, because you've been talking for quite a long time. Hector's
You
been leading
asked
you,
me a
so I'm going to talk
question,
now for a
so-
minute.
Can you not interrupt?
Right.
And I'm trying to answer?
Don't interrupt.
no.
Kit,
Well,
please.
she
Kit just
interrupted
got up
me.
here and was speaking.
No.
They were
I
speaking.
asked you a
started
question.
talking.
You answered it. It's my turn still.
I didn't actually finish. May I be politely allowed to finish my answer? I'm not interrupting, and I promise you won't have an interrupting problem for me. So there isn't a thing known as neurological sex. That's not what you're talking about. There's a
That-
difference between sex. There's a difference between sexual dimorphism and sex itself. You're confusing our sexually dimorphic features within our brains.
No, I know that you guys know. Okay, trust me, believe me. I've been in enough spaces with the people that debate this stuff on a constant basis, and I can tell you're one of them. And I get that you want to fill bro people's identities, but what I'm asking you, is there a difference between neurological sex and phenotypic sex?
I'm saying that I disagree with that.
Okay, but there's science that backs that, right? There's science that shows that the brains of a trans person is more closely related to the cis counterpart that they would have than to the sex that they were born as, correct?
Well, I've seen some of it, and actually the studies that were done actually showed that the persons were closer to the persons of their sex. So if you're talking about the study that says
No.
gender identity, can I finish? Never interrupted you. If you're talking about the study that says transgender individuals have a gender identity that is closer to their sex, or brain sex in transgender women is closer to that of women, if you actually go down to the results, it actually states that it's closer to, quote, cisgender men, if you read the study, if that's the study you're referencing. However, I think you're confusing something in neurology known as the difference between structure and function. Do you know the difference between structure and function in the context of neurology?
I understand what you're talking about. I also
Versus how it's
understand that there's
enacted.
multiple studies, not just a singular study on this.
Okay, so yet again, can you show a study indicating that there are functional differences that transgender people possess between their brain structures? Because there's a difference between structure and function. The structure of the brain isn't going to be necessarily indicative of a different function. So the differences between...
Well,
males and
no,
females in
not
terms of-
indicative, but it often functions that way, specifically for the trans individuals that we're
Not-
talking about.
Yeah,
Structure
yeah.
and function are obviously two different things. That's why you will not see trans people out here claiming that they are male or female, or trying to deny the fact that they are male or female assigned at birth. But womanhood and manhood, that is where we get into the conversation of how it's socially defined.
But you and Kit are arguing differently then, because they just said that neurological sex makes you a woman. That's not gender. So the person is contradicting.
Well, no. They just no.
Can you not
She
interrupt?
said
That's not
the
what I
difference.
said.
No, well, don't misquote what they said.
I'm not misquoting.
Don't misquote what they said. What they said is that their brain makeup showed that it was different and aligned itself closer to, say, a cis woman. That's all they said.
Which is the result of their gender identity. Am I correct? Kit?
That is not what
When I'm
Kit
asking,
said.
when I'm asking for the clarification, that's why it was a question, not a statement. So, are those structures in the brain that are noticed indicative of their gender identity? Does it have anything to do with the way that they gender identify, or have anything to do with their identity as trans? That's the question I'm asking.
Their preferences, yes.
I'm asking Kit, not you, because you're not coming from the same position.
We quite literally are, but go ahead, Kit.
You said gender was social, not neurological, so no.
Gender is a social construct, and I'm saying that there are studies that show that the neurological difference between those that are in the trans community and those that are cis is there. We
That
have
wasn't
studies
the
that show it. What?
That wasn't the question I was asking. Would you like me to re-clarify the question? The question was...
No, look, again, Edna, I understand the way that you're talking. I've seen trans medicalists before. I
I'm not a trans medicalist.
Right. You sound like one. Whether you are or not, you sound like one. Because you're filbroing people's identities, and there's the facts that we do have neurological studies that show that there are differences.
You just throwing around words. You're not really like engaging with what I'm saying. Like, can you actually like?
Right. I don't actually truly like want to engage with a person that just wants to sit here and argue that a whole community doesn't exist simply because they don't like the science that shows that it exists.
Well, I didn't say that. You're straw manning what I'm saying. So is the host going to?
So what are you? So then, please elaborate.
Right. So I never said trans women don't exist. I never said that. I said they're not women. So there's a difference between those two statements, right? So for example, I can say, hold on, please don't interrupt. So just in the same way that I can say, sorry, there's a bit of music playing in the background. Could that be turned on? I can't hear my thoughts. Right. So for example, I can say to you that fool's gold is not gold. It doesn't mean that fool's gold doesn't exist. It still very much exists. It's just that it's not gold. So if I say to you trans women are not women, it's not necessarily indicative of a statement that they don't exist. It's just me saying I don't think that they're women. So you're mischaracterizing what I'm saying. I didn't say that trans people don't exist. You're strawmanning my position. I never said that.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you for elaborating. So your point is that you don't believe in a difference between gender and sex. That's your point.
Not necessarily entailed either in that viewpoint. No.
So then,
it's not
okay, if you
necessarily.
don't believe that.
No.
What are the correlations?
The correlations between what?
Sex and gender. If you said you don't believe there's much
of a difference. Depends on
difference.
what you mean by gender. There's two definitions. There's the ordinary definition of gender, and then the definition used in sociology and anthropology.
The ordinary. I'm sorry. Repeat that again.
There's the ordinary colloquial understanding of the word gender, and then there's the term gender used in the social sciences like sociology and anthropology. Which one are you asking me to?
Sorry, how are they different?
The difference between the ordinary definition of gender and the social.
The ordinary definition very much is associated with sociology. Like that's what I'm missing here.
No, it's not. Persons ordinarily use the term gender in a synonymous sense to sex. Ordinarily, yes, they do.
Thank you guys for the gifts. Thank you, Queen, for the future encounter, whatever you call that thing. Go ahead, elaborate, Edna.
Right. So the ordinary utilization of the word gender is synonymous with sex. Most persons, when they say the gender of that person is X, they are referring to the sex of the person.
Correct.
However,
that goes back to literally what I said earlier.
No, it isn't, because you said that they were different. I'm saying that
I said that they were social. I said they were social. Yes, sex and gender are different, and socially we observe these things, and that's how we define them.
But that's not what I said. I didn't say that I was talking about society. In the ordinary sense, persons...
Hold on. First off, everything is societal. Like, what are you talking about? How can you separate the two?
Well,
we literally define what's manhood, what's womanhood based off of who cries, who's nurturing, who's this, who's that.
No, we don't, because...
We literally do.
No, we don't. That's what we call sexism, hon. We don't define women by stereotypes. You're being sexist if you define women by
yes, we very much do. That's the whole point. So we very much do define men and women based off of these stereotypes.
Wait, no, I'm not defining women.
The stereotype that women are more nurturing?
It is
what
a stereotype,
study is there to actually suggest that women are more emotional than men?
Hold on. That's a stereotype, which wouldn't be definitive of women. That's the point. So we don't define...
Exactly.
Right. So then women are not...
I'm not here saying the stereotypes are definitive of women or men.
You keep interrupting me every time I'm trying to talk.
No, I am clarifying. We're literally on the same page.
We're not on the same page because you just
We are. You just said stereotypes are not definitive of men and women, correct?
You're interrupting me again.
No, I'm making sure we're on the same page. You just said that stereotypes are not definitive of men and women, correct?
Okay. Yes, they're not. Can I respond to what
go ahead.
Right. So you're the one who is indicating that the women and men are defined by stereotypes because you said women and men were defined by...
I didn't say they're different by stereotypes. I said socially they're defined differently by stereotypes.
Interrupting me again.
Because you keep No. The reason why I'm interrupting you is because you're misquoting what I'm saying.
I'm not misquoting.
So then I'm correcting what I actually said, so you don't run off of things that I didn't.
I could explain.
Let's make sure we're clarifying each other's words here, not putting words at each other's mouth.
I could explain to you how what you're doing entails that. Would you like to listen instead of interrupting me every time?
I will interrupt you every single time you misquote me. Yes.
I'm not going to misquote you. If you don't.
Okay, then you won't get interrupted. Then
I'll explain to you how what you're saying entails this. Okay. So you said women and men were socially defined by social constructs. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Describe those social constructs to me without referring to stereotypes.
Without referring to stereotypes?
Yes, because you said they weren't.
That's literally the majority of that definition, though.
Oh, so then women and men are defined by stereotypes according to you, which is what I just said 10 seconds ago. Okay, so I didn't misquote.
Yeah, hold on. I never disagree with you. You were trying to say that I separated them. I made it a whole thing.
No. I said that you separated sex and gender, and then you said that gender
Correct.
was defined by. Hold on, and then you said that gender was defined by a set of social constructs. The social constructs were stereotypes, which is what I said. So if I say to you that stereotypes don't define men and women, are we agreeing or are we disagreeing?
We are agreeing.
No, we're not, because you just said women were defined by the social construct, and the social construct.
Oh my God! No. Okay. Here's what you're missing. Got you. I figured out where the disconnect is. I got you. I figured out where the disconnect is. The stereotypes that are used universally by society, whether it's here in the United States or the rest of the planet, is exactly what I am against. That is wrong. Those social definitions of men and women are not correct. The stereotypical ones are not correct.
Okay,
that's
give us
what I'm saying. We're in agreement
there.
Give
a social definition outside of stereotypes.
Outside of stereotypes?
Yeah.
That would be the majority of them. I got to think of one. Let me see.
Think of one social definition
outside of stereotypes.
Yeah, and if the stereotypes are included, then you agree that woman is not a social construct then.
What?
If you're saying that the stereotypes don't define men and women, and you can't describe the social definition without the stereotypes, and the definition isn't social, how are you not getting that?
I am getting it. This is define. So again, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I see, kid. Give me a second. What I am saying is, socially, this is how they are defined, and it is heavily and majority rooted in those stereotypes. I can't sit here and think of a way. I am going to try. I can't sit here and think of a single way that a man is a man and a woman is a woman without the stereotypes if we're not referring to things that are made up by sex specifically.
Okay, great. So then if that is the case, and you can't describe the social definitions without the stereotypes, and you disagree with defining them by stereotypes, then woman isn't a social concept to you. Because you can't define it without the stereotypes, you don't agree with the stereotypes. So then
I don't believe womanhood is solely a social stereotype.
Right.
Just based off the fact that that's how we've defined them. But no, I don't believe that. I don't agree with that because it doesn't make the most amount of sense. Can you
repeat back what I just said? I don't think you understand it. Repeat back what I just said to you. What did I just say?
You just said that I do not believe that women are solely defined by social stereotypes.
And therefore? Repeat the entire
Therefore, women aren't just social. Like womanhood is not just a social stereotype.
Right. So then gender.
Which means I can't separate them from sex and gender. That's the point that you're trying to make.
So then gender itself is not solely defined as a social construct. So that's just you conceding the previous statement, because your original statement is that gender itself is defined as a social construct. So you're conceding that gender is not entirely a social construct. Yes.
What? Say that one more time.
How are you not getting? Okay.
Hector, this is literally why I said that this is one of the, because literally it's just twisting words and arguments.
Wait, I'm not twisting words.
And like, I'm talking. I'm talking it now.
You're just interrupting and not adding anything to the conversation.
No, I talked right after Hector paused. You were not speaking.
I was about to repeat the question that he asked me to.
And as the non-binary person on the panel, I'm gonna take the time to talk. Thank you.
Okay, honey.
Okay, thanks, sweetheart. Anyways, I don't think that you're what? Okay. What?
Hold on, kid. Hold on. One of my guests paid to drop you. You're more than welcome to come back at a different point. We can carry on this conversation at a later date. Send me whatever you need to send me. But one of my guests paid to drop you. Thank you, Erica, for the $10 on Venmo. Drop them now. I got you. And I know I saw a couple swans. I apologize. I just really was trying to understand what they were saying. So my entire literal argument was the fact that the social constructs that we use to define men and women are wrong. We can see this in those stereotypes that you're referencing based off of who's more emotional, who's weaker, so on and so forth. Yes, there are biological arguments that shows on average, you're going to have men that are more stronger, men that are taller, so on and so forth. But that's not two men and two women. That's more so with sex. Yes, sure. That part I don't disagree with. That's not the point that I was making. Outside of those things, we then use sex, which would give you your PP or your vajayjay. And that's how we have also called people men and women, going into the social construct of those things, which again are also wrong via transgender individuals who identify as such, despite the fact that their sex assigned at birth was male or female. I don't think we're necessarily off on the same page. The only disagreement we're going to have is, again, him trying to say that trans women aren't real women, because real women aren't solely defined based off of some of the characteristics that I mentioned, such as women not being able to have birth, barren ones.
I know the reality is, Hector, I've seen this about a million times. It's literally why I stopped hanging around in a lot of more LGBTQ plus centered spaces, because these same people come in constantly. They're gender critical people. That's what they're called.
Hey,
Oh,
guess.
sorry.
I mean, person in the content mentioned, you see the 10 to drop an opera swan here. I know you guys saw several
wait.
swans that got dropped. So either
Oh,
way,
I'm so
that person
sorry.
had to